Hello and welcome back to UML Operator. And in this channel, we talk about UML and computer-aided software engineering. Today, we're going to pick up where we left off with our walkthrough of PlantUML. We'll get to other tools later, but I want to compare tools. In this channel, I talk a lot about Sparx Enterprise Architect. It's one of my favorite tools, but it's not my only tool. And I have to give a quick disclaimer that I'm not sponsored by Sparx EA. I'm just a system and software engineer that's been in this industry for over 30 years. And I usually choose the tools and platforms that work best for me and the team that I'm working with or for. Why and when we should use Sparx versus other tools. We're going to talk about the cost of doing business. And we're going to focus on why do we model in the first place? And what are our objectives? And what are our objectives in delivery or our deliverables? So let's get started. I work from personal experience and what has worked for myself and my teams for decades. I have watched technologies evolve. I've always searched for things that work and form patterns for reuse because my time's extremely valuable, and understand things that don't work and form anti-patterns to document and share with others. So today there's a lot of hype around AI development and so on. And today that problem is not AI. The problem is still the same thing as it's plagued us for decades. The problem is lack of good requirements and specification. It's important today to document your projects, solutions, and design, and it's more important than ever. In this episode, we're going to look at the pros and cons of building a concept of operations, because we've been focused on the ConOps for quite some time now. I've did a series on Sparx Enterprise Architect, and we've touched a little bit about building a concept of operations within PlantUML. I've gone through that. We've talked a little bit about C4, and that's dealing with your component, container, context, and code. And we're going to be stepping through a comparison of PlantUML as well as using Sparx to accomplish the same thing. So in Sparx, this is what we did in previous episodes. We talked about building templates to help guide others in building their Sparx Enterprise Architect solution approaches. We've talked about its relevance to architecture frameworks like the Open Group Architecture Framework, TOGAF, and Archimate, and how we take our tooling and drive our deliverables to reach our objectives. So let's get to the question, why do we model our objectives and model our deliverables? The short answer is to save time. The old adage, time is money, is critical in everything we do, business or life. But we will talk about this more later in this episode. I just wanted to get back to the topic of AI. So with AI taking over software development, and that should probably be in air quotes because it really is not completely at this time, we're experiencing major problems caused by AI development. The primary reasons get back to GIGO, garbage in, garbage out. If we're not clear on what we're asking AI to develop, AI will only produce what it thinks we're asking for or thinking. With our developers, and working with developers or AI, it's all the same practices and the same problems. We need to tell developers or AI exactly what you want and need. And if you fail to do this, then the interpretation is up to the developer AI. You've all experienced this, right? So over the last couple of years, I've heard UML is dead. Well, UML isn't dead, especially for AI-related software delivery. It's commonly combined with other tooling, for example, Apache Airflow. Maybe we'll talk about some others. But for modeling machine learning, the framework's native representation is graph and code. Graphs being graphics of some type, and they still dominate in that space. If you're designing a specific AI system Tools like C4 in Sparx Enterprise Architect or C4 in PlantUML, combined with the framework code, often provides the most practical results. However, Sparx EA captures the data necessary for delivery, specifications, and code development, so in its own SQL stores becomes a viable and valuable platform for driving your objectives. Next, we're going to talk about configurations of your tooling, especially to allow them to work together. So Sparx provides you the ability to set up your preferences of how you want your tool to work together, how you want your workspaces to work together for analysis, all the way down to delivery and release. It allows you to configure your environment for the particular technology that you want to deal with. So you can choose what your default language is, whether that's none or a particular language that is canned in Sparx Enterprise Architect. Even allows you to define the parameters around certain technologies that are most beneficial and productive. Allows you to integrate with other Sparx environments. It's based off of a SQL technology, which allows you to integrate with other environments, including other tooling, so that you're able to integrate requirements development, bring in your tag values and particular stereotypes, and publish to web. And in publishing to web, you can even publish to other providers like Joomla, and there are many more that are in the industry. Primarily, Sparx uses OSLC, Open Services for Lifecycle Collaboration, which allows you to integrate with other tools. Plus, there are MDGs, Model-Driven Generation, that allows you to do things in one tool that you can reproduce in another tool. Plus, integrating with other technologies that are out there, not just source code or technologies that are there, but also model-driven generation, MDG. So there's a lot of different industry standards that are out there that you can turn on, set to your perspectives, and helps you build very rapidly across your entire architecture landscape. Most importantly, Sparx allows you to integrate with your version control system. So you have package version control that you can configure. You have project version control, which you can set up to your version control system, VCS, whether that's Git, which is what we use. Before that, we were using Subversion, CVS, and there are many that are out there that Sparx integrates with. We've done videos on version control and integrating with your integrated development environments and the version control systems that they may be using. Next, we're going to talk about PlantUML configuration. And in this particular case, we're using VS Code, open source. It's a free tool to use, and we can use it integrated with our code environment, whether we're using VS Code or we're using Visual Studio. And in this particular case, we're bringing in tools. And let me just go in. Right now, we've got PlantUML as a plugin, as an extension. But there are many plugins that you can get through VS Code connected to GitHub and other sources that are secure for the most part. Just make sure you're checking each one of them, that allow you to bring in other tooling you can install from those environments. As for version control, we naturally assume that because this is a development tool that you're using, that you may go out and use various extensions for VS Code, VS Studio, Eclipse, NetBeans. There's so many that are out there. We're using VS Code. You can go out and bring in and build your own version control system, strategy, and repository. Next, let's talk about integration. So your developers are going to be using their IDE, their integrated development environment. Again, this is VS Code. And let's say they selected to use PlantUML. So they're in PlantUML and they're doing their modeling of what they envision for project delivery. So we have state machines, we can build a concept of operations based off of various element types. Here we're basically seeing package element types. We come down here, we're using miscellaneous connectors, pretty much just lines here that are connecting these boxes that are here that you've learned about during our PlantUML series. So with your development team, and they may not be using Sparx Enterprise Architect, doing their design work, what they envision for the delivery of a particular project or release. Now we want to integrate or exchange ideas, exchange models, exchange model data. So I've shown you quite a few ways to do this. We're in this particular model here. You can export current file diagrams. You've learned that. And you can export them graphically as a PNG. You can export them, and that was done. You can export them as I'm not going to select every one of them, SVG, EPS, as a PDF. Some of these are broken and they don't work, but let's look at XMI, XML Metadata Interchange, which is a UML standard for exchanging model data. So just because we have XMI here doesn't mean that it's going to work. It does work for the most part with class diagrams. So let's pick a class diagram and I'll show you that next. So let's say that you're working with your development team. They're not in Sparx, they're in their VS Code integrated development environment. I'm just going to say IDE from this point on. And they're building state machines, C4 component, context, diagrams, all of that fun stuff. And they want to exchange. Now, PlantUML gives you the ability to export the current file as XMI, but it doesn't work. You'll get in a couple of the components and then it will break because through transformation, it will find an error and you only get partial. I'm not going to demo that. However, class elements is a different story. So what we're going to do is pick a class element block diagram. These are all class elements that are here. Notice the connections that we have between these. We're going to right click on this. We're going to export file. We're going to use XMI. It is telling us that it's done. We're going to view where that is. And it is in the out folder, as you've learned in the channel, for this particular namespace. It's part 2 class. So let's go to out. Let's go to part 2 class. Let's go down to building blocks right here, expand that. And here's our XMI file. So here's our XML metadata interchange. So this is the file that we've been given that we can import into other UML compliant tools compliant with XMI, XML metadata interchange. All right, we have rolled over to Sparx Enterprise Architect. Let's just go ahead. We've created a namespace called XMI imports, and we have a blank diagram here. So in the package, we're going to hit Control Alt and I to bring up this dialog box for importing packages from native X or XMI XML files. And we're going to browse where we have the file. We're going to bring in the building block file that we just did. We're naming conventions, make sure that this XMI understands this is from PlantUML. This is not a native XML in Sparx. And we're going to hit open. And then I'm going to leave all the defaults. We're not going to baseline, probably should. I'm going to hit import. Yes, please go ahead and do so. And it is done that fast. Let's go ahead and close. So we've got all of the elements from PlantUML that are here. Let's go ahead and select all of them. Could do just one or two, but let's just bring them all in. Select for all, bring them all in, go to layout, and then we're going to just make these box form, right? So here is all of the PlantUML class elements all brought over. The thing is there's no connections. It does not understand the connection method that's used in PlantUML, but you are able to bring in only the class elements. There is nothing in them, all right? But it's a skeleton. It can help you do an exchange, take an idea, and go from there. But you can see the limits from PlantUML in being able to bring in your data and your metadata from PlantUML into Sparx. So we are going to wrap up now. I wanted to talk about the pros and cons of both Sparx and PlantUML, but I could speak for an hour just on the pros for Sparx. So we're going to do that in a separate episode. We're going to get into understanding the other different tools that are used, because as we proceed in this channel, we are going to be getting more into AI development, data science, machine learning. And I even want to I got to strip out a lot from proprietary projects and work that I'm doing, so I don't share that on YouTube, but just creating a demonstration of what you can do as you're using Sparx and integrating with other tools. One tool does not serve them all. You're going to have to pick the right platform, the right tools, the right technologies in order to accomplish the best results in delivery. Your different stakeholders and roles, they have tools in their tool belt that they're accustomed to working with on a daily basis. Developers prefer to use their IDE as their documentation tool. Architects and engineers want to use UML, especially SysML and Archimate, to produce their project models. My data scientists, data analysts, they use different tools for ERDs like Irwin. And then when they get into machine learning and data flows, they have tool sets that they're going to use. So how do you bring it all together? We want to work on that to show that you can use these other tools and incorporate those with your Sparx Enterprise Architect implementation. So until that next episode, thanks very much for watching. Again, comment down below, good or bad. Let me know what problems you're having, what subjects that you want me to cover. I'll try to cover them as quickly as I can. We're extremely busy. Last year I thought was busy, but it was mostly a lot of Linux conversions and that kind of thing. This year, now we're transitioning into more multiple tools and bringing teams together to deliver better machine learning and AI, because we got a lot of problems out there. As I stated, people still can't document. They can't create specifications. They can't elicit the proper business requirements. So more on that to come. Till that next episode, happy modeling.